Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Tom Walker stood in the kitchen, frowning at the overcooked, bitter coffee in his cup. His morning routine was interrupted by a thoughtful heart, resulting in the burnt cup of coffee in front of him. The 45-year-old site supervisor, his weathered face tells a history of years of directing construction work under the hot sun. His imposing, unchallengeable bearing, the faintest hint of gray in his dark hair, and his sharp, knife-like blue eyes are remnants of his military career, qualities that have served him equally well in civilian life. He reached for the newspaper, enjoying a moment of peace before departing for the construction site. The rustic kitchen reflects his pragmatic approach to life, functional, organized, and well-maintained, all with the discipline with which he approached everything. As a construction foreman, the paycheck isn't great, but it's enough to provide a comfortable life for his family, his wife, Eleanor, and his 21-year-old daughter, Ava. The ringing of the phone suddenly broke the silence, and Tom's hand, which was about to reach for his coffee, stopped in midair. Unknown number. Mr. Walker, this is Memorial Hospital. Your daughter Ava was brought to our emergency room. A calm, professional voice came through. Tom's fingers tightened on the phone. What happened? Sir, we can't discuss the details over the phone, but you should come over immediately. I'll be right there. His voice stayed steady, but his pulse sped up. Tom grabbed his jacket and left a forgotten half-eaten breakfast on the table. His boots clattered heavily on the kitchen floor as the old pickup engine growled, and he pulled out of the driveway with controlled urgency. The hospital's fluorescent lights stung his eyes as he walked quickly through the emergency department, and the nurse pointed to an area separated by a curtained tent. Tom's military training kicks in immediately as he quickly assesses the scene before him. Ava was lying on her bed, her face covered in ugly bruises, her right eye swollen, and tears streaming down her cheeks. Her hands trembled as she clutched the thin hospital blanket. Daddy, her voice choked. Tom walked over to her and took her hand. The gentleness of his touch contrasts with the anger building up inside. I'm here, baby girl. Tell me what happened. Ava's words came out in broken sobs. I'm back early from Sarah's. I heard a noise upstairs. She squeezed her eyes shut. In your bedroom. Tom's jaw tightened. Go on. Mom and Uncle Rick were there. They're together. Those words hit Tom like a physical blow. Eleanor, his wife of 23 years, and Rick, her brother, the businessman who always seemed to have a problem. I screamed. Ava continued. And then two men appeared out of nowhere, Rick's bodyguard. They grabbed me and pushed me down the stairs. Her body sobbed again. They're still there, Daddy, drinking your whiskey and laughing. Tom stood up, his movements controlled and determined. Have you seen a doctor? They're waiting for X-ray. Very good. He kissed her forehead. I'll be back soon. Dad. Ava grabbed his wrist. Don't do anything stupid. A sneer appeared at the corner of Tom's mouth. Not a stupid thing, just a necessary thing. He found the nurse's station and approached the front desk at a measured pace. My daughter, Ava Walker, I need to know the extent of her injuries. The nurse taps a few times on her computer, contusion, possible concussion, awaiting x-rays of her ribs and right wrist. The doctor has prescribed painkillers. I want all the paperwork, Tom interrupted her. Pictures of her injuries, medical reports, everything. Sir, this is not standard procedure dash. Make it standard procedure. His voice lowered. Those assholes can't just get away with it. The nurse studied his face, then nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. Tom's thoughts were in turmoil as he processed the situation. Eleanor, his wife, the woman he built a life with, is betraying him with her own brother. Rick, the one who always brings expensive wine and a haughty smile to family dinners. The one who Tom always feels is tainted underneath the glossy exterior. But a bodyguard? This suggests more than a simple affair. Rick's business dealings have always looked suspicious. Too much money, too little explanation. Now he has armed men willing to attack a young woman. Tom took out his cell phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. It's Walker. Remember that favor you owe me from Kandahar? He pauses, listening. I asked to be repaid. I need everything you can find out about Richard Thorne's business operations, and I mean everything. He ended the call and stared at the emergency room door. 23 years of marriage, countless family dinners, shared vacations. All lies. The betrayal stung him deeply, but it wasn't the sex that enraged him. It was Ava, his daughter, his child. They have crossed the line, and no father can tolerate that. Tom walked back to Ava's bedside, where she had fallen into a restless sleep under the effects of the painkillers. He looked at her bruise-covered face and recalled the day she was born, when he had sworn to protect her from all harm. He failed today, but he won't fail again. A doctor approaches, record board in hand. "Mr. Walker, we need to discuss your daughter's injury." "Just a minute." Tom's gaze didn't leave Ava's face. "I need to make another call." He takes a few steps away and dials another number. The phone rang twice. "Agent Ramirez, this is Thomas Walker. We need to talk about Richard Thorne and his associates." He listens briefly. "No, not at the police station. Somewhere private. It goes deeper than you know." Tom ended the call and returned to Ava's bedside. The doctor waited patiently. "Tell me everything," Tom said. "I want to know exactly what they did to my little girl." Tom's anger curdled into something hard and cold as the doctor detailed Ava's injuries. "Eleanor, Rick, the bodyguards, they think they're untouchable. They think they can hurt his family, and they're still drinking his whiskey and laughing. They were wrong. They don't know what kind of people they're dealing with. But they'll know. Tom will make sure that happens." He sat in the chair next to Ava's bed, his mind already planning what he needed to do next. First protect Ava, then gather intel, then they'll realize the mistakes they've made, the mistake of betraying Thomas Walker, the mistake of hurting his daughter, the mistake of thinking they could get away with it. Tom's truck pulled slowly into his street, his trained eyes scanning for unfamiliar vehicles. Two black SUVs with dark tinted glass pulled up in his driveway, professional bodyguards trying to look inconspicuous in a working-class neighborhood. Amateur hour. He stopped a block away and approached on foot. The front door was open and the light spilled out onto the porch. Music came out of it, accompanied by raucous laughter. Tom enters quietly through a side door, moving through his home as noiselessly as an intruder. The sound system played bass-heavy music, muffling the sound of his footsteps. He could smell cigarettes, in a house where he'd never been allowed to smoke. The voice came from the living room, a man's laugh, deep and arrogant. Rick's voice. "You should have seen the look on his face when I showed up at Christmas dinner. Thanks for the wine, Rick." The clueless bastard. More laughter. Eleanor's voice joins in, slurred by alcohol. He never suspected. Too busy with his precious routine. Coffee at 6, news at 6:15. Tom's hands balled into fists. The 23-year marriage was reduced to a joke for her brother's amusement. He walked through the doorway, the scene seared into his memory. Eleanor sitting paralyzed on the couch, glass in hand, shirt half open. Rick leaning over her, arm draped dominantly over her shoulder. Two men in black suits standing in front of the window, attempting to look professional in spite of the beer in hand. "Get out." Tom's voice cuts off the music. The room froze. Eleanor's glass slipped from her fingers and spilled onto the carpet. Rick's fake smile disappeared. "Huh," Rick trailed off, but his eyes quickly went to his bodyguard. "The man of the house is back." 5 seconds, Tom said, "and then I'll start kicking you out." The first bodyguard, young and muscular, dressed in a suit like a suit, steps forward. "Listen, man dash." Tom moved. Years of combat training erupted into violence. His first strike was aimed at the man's throat, and as the bouncer covered his throat, Tom's knee slammed into his temple. The man collapsed, gasping for breath. The second bodyguard reached for his weapon. Tom grabbed his arm and twisted it until the bone broke. The bouncer screams as Tom slams his head into the wall, once, twice. The man is unconscious. 15 seconds, 2 threats cleared. Rick stumbles back, pulling Eleanor with him. "Now, Tom, be reasonable." "Reasoning?" Tom closed in on them. "Like your people reason with my daughter? She shouldn't be here." Eleanor snapped. "It's not our fault." Tom backhanded her. A pop echoed through the room, and Eleanor fell onto the couch, covering her face and looking at him in surprise. "Don't you dare," Tom growled. "Don't you dare blame her." Rick tried to move toward the door. Tom grabbed him by the throat and slammed him hard against the wall. Rick's feet dangled and his face turned red. "Please," Rick gasped. "We can talk about this." "Talk." Tom increases the pressure, like when your people talk to Ava with their fists. He drives his knee hard into Rick's midsection and then lets him fall. As Rick gasps for air, Tom's boot kicks him in the ribs in quick succession, once, twice, 3 times. "Stop." Eleanor screams, "You'll kill him." "No." Tom's voice was surprisingly calm. "Not yet." He grabbed Rick's hair and yanked his head up. "Your people hurt my little girl. I think I'll return the favor." What happened next was methodical, brutal, and precisely calculated. Tom knows exactly how much damage the human body can take. He keeps Rick aware and lets him feel every blow. When he was finished, Rick was curled up on the floor sobbing, his nosebleed dripping onto the carpet Tom had installed last summer. Tom turned to Eleanor. She clung to the couch, trembling. "Tommy, please," she begged. "I can explain. Don't call me that." He looked at her as if she were a stranger. "Get your things and get out. If you're still here in 10 minutes, you'll wish you weren't." Eleanor staggered to her feet. "Where am I going?" "Ask your brother." Tom's laugh is humorless. He turned to the bodyguards, one unconscious and one still holding his throat. "Take your boss and get out. If I ever see either of you again, they will not find your bodies." The sentient bodyguard struggled to his feet and helped his companion. Together, they lift Rick, who groans in pain. "This isn't over," Rick grunted through bloodied lips. "That's right." Tom smiled as the two bodyguards involuntarily stepped back, and that's just the beginning. He watched as they loaded Rick into one of the SUVs. Eleanor stumbled after her, her makeup smudged and tears streaking her cheeks. She looked back once, but Tom had already turned around. Inside, he looks over the damage. The broken glass, the blood on the carpet, the cigarette burns on his coffee table. The home he built was desecrated by their presence. His phone prompted a text from Mac. "Found something. Meet me tonight." Tom nodded to himself. Eleanor and Rick thought it was over, thought he had vented his anger and gotten his revenge. They were wrong. It's not about revenge, it's about justice. For Ava, for the years they'd laughed behind his back, for every time Rick had sat down at his dining room table and planned to destroy his family's holiday dinner. Tom walks into his bedroom. Their bedroom, the bed where he was betrayed, still carries the evidence of their affair. He methodically stripped the sheets, took them to the backyard, and lit them on fire. Then he made a series of phone calls to his bank, to his lawyer, to Detective Ramirez. Eleanor thought she knew him, thought he was predictable, boring, and safe. She will learn how wrong she was. They'll all know. In the silent aftermath of the violence, Tom sits in his chair and stares at the blank TV screen. The house feels empty and defiled. Blood still stained his knuckles. Rick's blood. His cell phone rang again. "Mac, construction site, 1 hour." Tom closed his eyes, and the memories came flooding back. Back in Afghanistan, in 2003, the ambush that nearly killed them both. Mac pulled him to safety as bullets ripped through the air. The debt between them was written in blood and gunfire. He has not always been such a man, capable of calculated violence, cold vengeance. Once, he was a small-town kid with simple dreams. Military service changed him, teaching him about duty, loyalty, and harsh realities, in a world where violence solves problems that words cannot. The day he met Eleanor replayed in his mind. She was a waitress at the local restaurant, always bright with a smile and endless small talk. He had just retired from the military and was still adjusting to civilian life. She seemed to be an anchor, something real to hold on to while his thoughts still echoed with gunshots and screams. Their courtship is quick and passionate. She talks about her dreams of a big house, a luxury car, a life like the one her brother Rick enjoys. Tom promises to give her everything he can, not wealth, but stability, security, a home. For years, that seemed to be enough. They had Ava, bought this house, built a life. Tom was promoted from general laborer to foreman and takes pride in honest work. Eleanor seemed happy, or at least he thought she was. Now he wondered how long the lie had lasted. How long had she looked at his rough hands and worn work boots with contempt? How long has she been conspiring with Rick to mock the faithful husband who trusted her? Rick. Tom's hand tightened at the thought of him as a brother-in-law. The family's golden boy, dressed in a designer suit, is smooth-talking. Tom has never trusted him and sees the predator beneath the glossy exterior. But for Eleanor's sake, he welcomes Rick into his home, eats with him at his table, and puts up with his subtle attacks and condescending smiles. Tom's phone rings. "Agent Ramirez." "Walker." He answered. "Got some info on your brother-in-law." Ramirez went straight to the point. "You're not going to like." "Tell me." "Those aren't just your regular bodyguards at home. They are the enforcers. Rick has been running a protection racket that squeezes local businesses. He's got paid cops, pocket judges. Tom absorbs this information. It explains the muscle men. There's more, Ramirez continued. Your wife has been making large withdrawals and moving money to offshore accounts. How long? It's been at least 6 months, Walker. Ramirez hesitated. They plan to drain you dry. The divorce papers are ready. They're going to take everything and leave you with nothing but debt. Tom's laugh stung. Thanks for the intel, agent. Walker, Ramirez's voice sharpened. Don't do anything stupid. Rick has connections, and he's dangerous. Me too. Tom ended the call. He stood up and walked through the house with a purpose. In the bedroom, he opened the closet and pushed aside the hanging clothes. The safe is hidden behind a fake panel, his private space, a secret Eleanor never finds out. Inside were relics of his military career, papers, medals, a book of contacts from his service days, people who owed him favors, people who knew how to handle problems quietly. When he arrived, the construction site was dark. Mac's truck was parked in the shadows, away from the streetlights. Tom approaches cautiously, scanning for surveillance. Old habits die hard. Mac stood next to a pile of steel beams, his broad form set against the night sky. 20 years of civilian life haven't softened him. He still moves like a soldier, alert, ready. You look awful, Mac said as Tom approached. You should see the other guy. Mac nodded toward his truck. Something to show you. Inside the truck cab, Mac pulls out a laptop. Been checking out Rick's operation. This man has his fingers everywhere. Real estate fraud, protection racketeering, money laundering. But that's the fun part. He turned the screen toward Tom. Bank statements, property records, shell companies. Your wife's name keeps coming up. She's been working with Rick for years, helping him move money. She's not just his lover, she's his partner. Tom studied the papers, and his expression became harsher. She made a fool out of me. There's more, Mac continued. Rick's in trouble. He borrowed big money from some dangerous people. He was said to be in desperate need of cash. That's probably why they're accelerating their timetable for dealing with you. Schedule. Mac pulls up more documents. They've been planning this for months. Divorce, asset transfer, everything. They intend to bleed you dry and put you in Rick's debt. You'll lose everything. House, savings, maybe even go to jail because of their financial scam. Tom absorbed the information in silence. The betrayal was deeper than he thought. Not just an affair, but an elaborate plot to destroy him. Where's Ava? He finally asked. She's not supposed to be home today. They dropped the ball too easily and got caught. Rick's people panicked. Tom's jaw tightened. They hurt my little girl, and they're going to pay for it. It will, Mac assured him. But you need to act smart. Rick has connections. You confront him head on. You'll die or go to jail. I'm not going to kill him, Tom said calmly. Death is too quick, too clean. I want them to suffer. I want them to lose everything, just like they planned to do to me. Max studied his old friend's face. You have a plan? It's forming. Tom stood up. I need you to keep digging. Bank records, business contacts, everything. I want to know every skeleton in their closet. Where's Eleanor? Tom's expression turned cold. She made her choice. Now she has to face the consequences. He left the Mac and drove home, pondering the possibilities. The house felt different, a crime scene rather than a home. He walked through each room, noting the little signs he'd missed. The extra phone she'd hidden in a jewelry box, the financial papers behind a filing cabinet, the business cards from an offshore bank. All the pieces of betrayal, blatantly hidden. In Ava's room, he stopped. Photos cover her walls, family vacations, birthdays, graduations. Eleanor smiles and plays the dutiful mother while plotting to destroy their lives. His cell phone alert, from Ava. When can you pick me up? Tom replied, tomorrow morning. Rest well. Another text came in, this time from Eleanor. We need to talk. Tom deleted it without replying. There's nothing more to say. He spent the night in his chair, cleaning his gun, making lists, planning. Eleanor and Rick thought they knew him. The predictable, reliable Thomas Walker, the man who followed the rules. They don't know what he can do. At the break of dawn, Tom made coffee, this time proper and not burnt. He had experienced betrayal before, in war, and seen what it did to people. But this is different. It's not a fight, it's family. They brought the war to his doorstep and threatened his children. Now they will learn what that means. The sun rose over his broken home, marking the end of one life and the beginning of another. Thomas Walker, husband, father, builder of homes, is gone. In his place was a warrior awakened from a long sleep, a man with nothing to lose and everything to avenge. The war has begun. Tom walked through the hospital's sterile corridors toward Ava's room, his boots echoing on the linoleum. The nurses at the station nodded to him. They had gotten used to his presence over the past day. Through the window of the door, he could see Ava lying on the bed, her bruised face facing the TV hanging on the wall. "Hi, baby girl," he said softly, entering the room. Despite the injury, Ava's eyes lit up. "Daddy." Her voice was stronger than before, but pain still edged her words. Tom sat down in the chair next to her bed and took her hand in his. The bruises on her face had darkened, tracking the passage of time since Rick's men had attacked her. His jaw tightened at the sight of this. "The doctor said I can go home tomorrow," Ava said. "Not home," Tom replied. "I've arranged for you to stay with Sarah for a while." "But Dad." "Don't argue." His voice was gentle but firm. "Home is not safe right now. I need to take care of a few things." Ava's fingers tightened on his. "Mom called me." Tom's expression hardened. "What did she say?" "She tried to explain, said it wasn't what I thought it was," said Uncle Rick. Ava's voice cracked. "Said I shouldn't have been there, that it was my fault because I came home early." Tom stood up abruptly and paced to control his anger. "None of this is remotely your fault. Not a bit. I should have known something was wrong," Ava continued. "The way they whispered when you weren't around. The way Uncle Rick started showing up more often when you were at work." She wiped her eyes with her hand. "Mom has been meeting with a lawyer. I saw the papers in her car last week. I should have told you." "It's not a crime for you to trust your mother," Tom said as he returned to her bedside. "Tell me everything you remember. When did Rick start showing up more often?" As Ava narrates, Tom's mind records details, building a timeline of betrayal. Eleanor's real estate meetings that always drag on late. Rick's casual arrivals. The whispered phone conversations that always take place while Tom is at the construction site. The hidden files. A knock on the door interrupted them. Max stood in the doorway, his hospital administrator's badge gleaming in the fluorescent light. "Got a minute?" Mac asked. Tom squeezed Ava's hand. "Get some rest. I'll be right back." In the hallway, Mac pulled him aside. "Those guys you fixed up, they're more than hired muscle. They're connected. One of them works security for a downtown casino and has a lot of thug connections. The other has a criminal record longer than my arm. Violent assault, extortion, attempted murder." Tom absorbed this information. "Rick went much deeper than I thought he would." "That's not all," Mac continued after looking around. "There's been inquiries about your brother-in-law. He's got protection from someone high up, the police, a judge, someone to make sure he stays clean. Can you give me the name?" Mac nodded. "Working on it. But watch your back. These aren't amateurs. You're dealing with professionals." Tom's cell phone rings and Agent Ramirez requests a meeting. "Keep digging," he told Mac. "I need everything you can find." Back in Ava's room, he finds her nodding off, the drugs making her sleep more, which is probably for the best. She doesn't need to see what's coming. A nurse entered with fresh bandages. "Mr. Walker, we need to document her injuries again for the police report." Tom watched as they photographed every bruise, every scrape, the evidence, the ammunition. "The agents handling her case called," the nurse said, "and they want to interview her tomorrow." "No." Tom's voice was final. "She's been through enough. They can talk to me." The nurse hesitated. "Sir, in domestic violence cases dash." "This isn't domestic violence," Tom interrupted her. "It's something completely different that I'm dealing with." Later in the evening, as night falls on the hospital, Tom sits and watches Ava sleep. His cell phone lit up with text messages from Eleanor, requests, explanations, threats. He deleted it all. The woman who had been his wife, the mother of his children, was no longer there. In his place is a stranger, someone who plotted to destroy him, someone who watched their daughter being attacked and did nothing. Tom's fingers brushed over the military ID he still carried with him. 20 years ago, he was a man who understood how to deal with his enemies, a man who understood that sometimes violence is the only language people respect. When he came home, he buried the man and built a life of peace. But now, looking at his daughter's bruised face, he felt the soldier awakening, rising, preparing for war. Eleanor, Rick, their thugs, who brought violence into his home, hurt his children, tried to take everything away. They're about to learn that Thomas Walker hasn't forgotten how to fight. The police department was busy with activity as Tom headed to Agent Ramirez's table. Isabella Izzy Ramirez is a 40-something woman with a sharp face and a keen eye that doesn't miss a thing. She gestured for him to sit down. "You look like hell," she observed. "The last few days have been tough." Izzy pulled out a thick folder. "Got some info you need to see." She spread the photos out on the table, surveillance photos of Eleanor meeting various men in expensive suits. "That's Julian Torres," Izzy said, pointing to a handsome man in his 30s, a con man, specializing in real estate fraud. "Been on our radar for years, but couldn't catch anything. Your wife has met with him at least 6 times in the past month." Tom studies the photos. "What's the connection?" "Torres helped people hide money, set up shell companies, offshore accounts. He's fine. We've never been able to prove anything." Izzy leans forward. 3 weeks ago, Eleanor transferred most of your joint savings into an account we can't track. The paperwork looks legit, your signature's on everything." "I never signed anything." "No, but someone signed it, good enough to fool the bank." Izzy pulls out more documents. "There's more. Your brother-in-law's businesses, their fronts, money laundering, and probably contraband. Those bodyguards who hurt your daughter, they work for the Castellano family." The name hit Tom like a physical blow. Castellanos controls most of the organized crime in the city. If Rick gets involved, "You need to quit," Izzy warns. "These people don't play games. They'll kill you without even blinking." Tom's laugh stung. "They have tried to destroy me and hurt my daughter. You expect me to walk away? I expect you to be smart." Izzy lowers her voice. "Look, I can't officially help you, but unofficially." She slid a flash drive across the table. "This contains all the information we have on Torres, Rick, and their operations account numbers, business records, surveillance reports. Just be careful how you use it." Tom put the flash drive in his pocket. "I owe you." "Yes, you owe." "And Tom," she grabbed his arm as he stood up, "whatever you're planning, make sure I don't have to arrest you for it." From the police station, Tom drove to his bank. The manager had a sympathetic expression as he reviewed his account. "I'm sorry, Mr. Walker. The transfers were all legally authorized. Your wife has power of attorney. Show me everything she moved and where it went." The manager pulled up the transaction logs, and Tom's jaw tightened as he watched their savings disappear: college funds, retirement accounts, everything. Eleanor has been very thorough. His cell phone rang and Max sent the coordinates for the meeting. Tom found him in the hospital parking lot, smoking, despite breaking the rules. "Get the name you want," Max said, adding that Judge Michael Preston has been handling all cases involving Rick's businesses, dismissing charges and sealing records. Castellanos owns him. "Where are those bodyguards?" "Vincent Caruso and Tony Baglia, career criminals. Caruso's still in intensive care. You beat him up pretty good. Baglia was released this morning." Tom nodded. "Where does he live?" Max's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Need to ask him some questions." "These guys are pros, Tom. They'll kill you." "They can try." Tom's voice was icy. "Are you going to tell me where he lives or not?" Max sighed and handed over a piece of paper. "Suit yourself." Tom's next stop was his house. Eleanor had cleaned out most of her things, but he wasn't interested in clothes or jewelry. He went straight to her home office, the place she never let him organize. The filing cabinets yielded a treasure trove: bank statements, correspondence, meeting minutes. Eleanor records everything, probably for her own protection. Now her own paranoia will help destroy her. A hidden folder contains photos, intimate scenes of Eleanor and Rick. Ransom insurance, Tom realized. She's been playing everyone, even her partners in crime. His phone rang, Eleanor's number. He almost deleted it, then reconsidered. "It's time to start your own game." "Hello." "Tommy, please." Her voice was tearful. "We need to talk." "It's not what you think." "No." His voice was casual. "So you didn't steal my money and watch Rick's men push our daughter down the stairs?" "I didn't know they would hurt her." "Rick promises." "Rick promises what?" "He'll help you drain me and make me take the blame for his crimes." Silence on the other end of the line. Then, "How do you know Dash?" "I know everything, Eleanor. About Julian Torres, about Castellanos, about Judge Preston." He let those words sink in. "You really should be more careful with your papers." "Tom, please." There was real fear in her voice now. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. These people." "No, you don't understand. You brought these people into my home and let them hurt my children. Now you can watch me tear their whole world apart." They'll kill you. Someone stronger than them has already tried. Tom ended the call. His laptop boots up, and he plugs in Izzy's flash drive. Hours of surveillance images, financial records, police reports. Everything he needed to know about the workings of his enemies. A separate file contains information about Julian Torres' past victims, the people he's lied to, the lives he's destroyed. Tom started taking notes. These people will want revenge. They just need someone to tell them how to get it. As night fell, Tom cleaned his gun, an old habit that helped him think. Eleanor and Rick thought they were dealing with a simple construction foreman, a predictable man who played by the rules. They forget, or never knew, what he used to be, what he did in the service of his country, the skills he learned. Tom smiled in the darkness. It's time to remind them. The bar was almost empty when Tom arrived. Max sat in the corner cubicle, papers spread out on his desk, half-empty whiskey in front of him. Those are hospital reports, Tom asked, sliding into the cubicle. Mac pushed them over. Caruso got 3 broken ribs, a fractured larynx, and possible permanent damage to his knee. But Baglia isn't doing so well. Broken jaw, dislocated shoulder, concussion. They will survive. Well, Max studied his friend's face. You're starting a war here, Tom. They started it. I'm just ending it. Mac pulled out more papers, got the background check you asked for. Torres has been working with Rick for about 2 years. They run quite a sophisticated operation, finding desperate people, offering fake investment opportunities, and milking them dry. Your wife helped set up the company and handle the paperwork. How many victims? At least 20 that we know of. Most lose everything. Max slides over a list of names and addresses. What do you plan? Tom put the list in his pocket. It's better if you don't know. These guys you're dealing with, they're not amateurs. Castellanos doesn't play games. I don't play either. Tom's voice was flat, anymore. His cell phone rings and Agent Ramirez asks for another meeting. Tom finishes his drink and stands up. Watch your back, Mac warned. Always. Tom finds Izzy in the police station parking lot, leaning against her car. There's something you need to see, she said, handing him a file. Judge Preston has been making regular deposits into an offshore account. Large deposits. Far more than his salary can explain. Tom flipped through his bank statement. This is what they used to buy him off. It looks like it, but that's not all. Izzy pulls out more pictures. Preston has a weakness for young prostitutes. Rick's people have been supplying them, along with cocaine. They own him completely. Useful information. Izzy grabbed his arm. Don't do anything stupid. These people have protection, money, power. Tom's smile was icy. But they've never dealt with someone like me. Back home, Tom spreads it all out on the dining room table. Surveillance photos, financial records, witness statements. The pieces of the puzzle finally fit together. Rick's operation was much bigger than he thought it would be. Real estate fraud is just the surface. Underneath are layers of money laundering, drug trafficking, prostitution. All protected by corrupt officials and mob connections. Eleanor knows it, must know it. Yet she chooses to ally herself with them and help them destroy him. His cell phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Quit while you can. Final warning. Tom saved the number. Useful to know they were worried enough to threaten him. He started taking notes, mapping relationships and weaknesses. Rick's operation relies on keeping his victims silent and maintaining the appearance of legitimacy. What happens if this facade breaks down? Judge Preston is the weak link. Screw him over and the whole protection program collapses. But first, Tom pulled out the list Mac had given him. Torres victims, people who lost homes, savings, businesses. There's nothing to lose, man. It's time to give them their revenge. His laptop contains templates for business letters, corporate documents. Within an hour, he created invitations to private investment recovery conferences, anonymous tips about where their money really goes. Prepare to sprout the seeds of destruction. Next, he accessed the surveillance footage provided by Izzy. Preston leaves the brothel. Preston meets with known drug dealers. Preston accepts an envelope of cash from Rick's associates. 3 copies, burned to separate drives. 1 for the press, 1 for the bar association, and 1 for Preston himself. Tom's cell phone rang again. Ava, Dad, when can we go home? Not yet, baby. Soon. He kept his voice gentle. How are you feeling? Better. Sarah's parents are very friendly. Pause. Mom keeps calling. Don't answer it. I won't. Ava's voice hardened. I saw what they did to you, what they tried to take from us. None of this matters. You're the one that matters. Just be careful, okay? I can't lose you again. You won't. Tom's resolve strengthened. Get some rest, I love you. Hanging up, Tom returned to his plan. The pieces are in place. Judge Preston's corruption, Torres victims, Castellano the criminal empire. All connected, all vulnerable. Pull the right thread, and the whole thing will collapse. His cell phone lit up, and it was Eleanor again. This time he picked it up. Last chance, he said before she could speak. Tell me where the money is. I can't. Her voice trembled. They'll kill me. Then you better hope they find you before I do. He ended the call and returned to work. The soldier recognizes within him what this is, not revenge, but war. Intelligence gathering, target assessment, strategic strikes. Eleanor, Rick, Torres, Castellanos. They're about to learn what happens when you push a trained killer too far, when you hurt his beloved family. Tom smiled in the darkness. The storm is gathering, and it's time to let it explode. Tom sat in his truck outside Julian Torres' office building, watching through binoculars as the con artist's victims arrived one by one. 20 people whose lives were destroyed by Torres, each carrying a manila folder full of evidence of his scam. Tom has contacted all of them with evidence of Torres' fraud, giving them a chance for revenge. His cell phone rang with a text from Izzy. Judge Preston just signed the warrant. Actionable. Tom checks his watch. Within 30 minutes, Preston will realize his mistake, signing a search warrant for a property owned by his Castellano family patron. By then it's too late. In the building's lobby, victims gather, anger radiating from their faces. A banker who lost his pension, a widow whose house was stolen through forged documents, a contractor forced into bankruptcy. All waiting for Torres. Tom's disposable cell phone rings. Danny Lee's number. The transfer is complete, Danny said, and Rick's account is empty. Everything was transferred to the shell company. What about offshore accounts? Those too. Eleanor's bond is gone. They're both broke. Tom nodded. Send the evidence to the IRS. Anonymous tip. It's done. Are you sure about this? Castellanos will. Let me worry about them. Tom ended the call. A black Mercedes pulls into the parking lot. Torres is here for work. Tom watched through his binoculars as the crook stepped out and straightened his expensive suit. Torres didn't notice the gathering crowd, too busy checking his reflection in the car window. Tom took out his phone and dialed the number he got from Mac. Mr. Torres, I'm David Shun with the SEC. We've received some worrying reports about your investment practices. I'm in your lobby with some former clients who want to discuss the matter. Torres freezes, then turns to the building entrance. Tom could see the moment he recognized the waiting face, the mask of the con man's confidence slipping away to be replaced by raw fear. Tom smiled and dialed another number, local news station. This is an anonymous tip. You might want to send a camera crew to 1835 Market Street. A group of fraud victims are confirming the man who cheated them out of their life savings. Torres tries to return to his car, but the crowd has spotted him. They surged forward, waving papers and shouting accusations. The news van screeched into the parking lot as the cameras operated. Tom's cell phone lights up and Rick calls. He let it go to voicemail and checked the messages. You asshole, what did you do? The IRS is here and they're collecting everything. I'll kill you. Another call, this time from Eleanor. Her voice shook with panic. Tom, please. They said everything was fraud, that Rick was laundering money. They're freezing my account. I need help. Tom deleted the message without responding. Through his binoculars, he watched Torres try to make his way through the crowd, his designer suit now wrinkled and torn. The crew captures everything as victims share their stories, decades of fraud exposed to the glare of daylight. Police cars arrive, lights flashing. Tom recognized Izzy stepping out of an unmarked vehicle with a search warrant. Her timing is perfect. Torres is arrested on camera, surrounded by his victims, when the feds come in to arrest him. Tom's disposable cell phone rang with a text from Danny. File sent to SEC. The entire operation is exposed. Rick's contact with the fraud was documented. They're both going down. The program works perfectly. Torres will defend himself by implicating Rick in the fraud. Rick will panic and may try to run away. Castellanos will realize that he has become a burden. Tom starts his truck and drives off, leaving chaos in his wake. One target down, 2 to go. His next stop is a construction site, where he arranges to meet Baglia the bodyguard, who helped push Ava down the stairs. The man had agreed to talk, thinking Tom wanted to negotiate peace. Tom stops behind the half-finished building to check his recording equipment. Everything Baglia says will be captured, recorded, and preserved as evidence against Rick and his criminal associates. The bouncer arrived on time and came alone as instructed. His face still showed bruises from their last confrontation. "Come on," Baglia growled. "I shouldn't be here." Tom stepped out of the shadows. "Tell me about Rick's operation, the money laundering, the protection racket, everything." "You're crazy. I won't say anything." Tom pulls out his cell phone and plays a recording. Baglia discussing drug shipments, naming names, and describing criminal operations in detail. The bodyguard's face turned white. "How did you dash?" "Your buddy Caruso talks in his sleep. Hospital rooms have surprisingly thin walls." Tom's voice hardened. "Start talking or this will go to the FBI and Castellanos." Baglia talked for an hour. He describes in detail Rick's crimes, his ties to organized crime, the complex network of corruption he has built. Tom records everything. When Baglia was finished, Tom handed him an envelope, a plane ticket to Miami as cash for a new start. "Disappear, or the recording goes public." The bodyguard grabbed the envelope with trembling hands and fled. Tom sends a copy of the recording to multiple secure locations in case anything happens. His cell phone rang. Max sent the coordinates. It was time to move on to the next stage. Rick will now panic and watch his empire crumble. Eleanor will despair as her stolen money disappears into untraceable accounts. Both are running away in panic and making mistakes. Tom smiled in the darkness. The trap has been set. Now comes the fun part, watching them destroy themselves trying to escape. The warehouse district was silent at this hour, except for the distant rumble of freight trains. Tom parks his truck behind an abandoned loading dock and checks his weapons. The Glock had been cleaned, loaded, and the spare weapon strapped to his ankles. Purely as a defensive measure, he had no intention of using them. His cell phone lit up with a series of text messages. "Danny, Rick just tried to access the accounts, and they're all empty. He's completely flustered." "Mac, Castellano enforcer spotted in Rick's office. They don't look happy." "Is he?" Preston gave it all, names, dates, everything. The whole operation was exposed. Tom deletes these messages and walks into the night. The former warehouse had been the front line of Rick's main money laundering, a wholesale electronics business that never shipped any actual products. Now it will be the site of Rick's downfall. Tom decided to stay on the periphery and observe the developments. He has everything set up: evidence, information leaks, account transfers. Now it's just a matter of letting things run their natural course and letting Rick's partners in crime deal with the traitors themselves. Right on time, a black SUV drove up to the loading dock. Rick stumbled out, clutching a briefcase. His expensive suit crumpled, his face pale with fear. Two men from the Castellano organization followed him, their expressions grim. "The money's here," Rick's voice cracked. "All of it. Just let me explain, Dash." The larger gang member grabs the briefcase and checks inside. It's empty. "What? No, that's not possible. It was just here. Someone must have Dash." "You're missing 10 million of the family's money," the second gangster growled. "And Mr. Castellano wants answers." Tom had made sure that Rick's secret account information was delivered to the Castellano family. He knew what was going to happen next without having to intervene personally. Rick started to panic. "I can explain. Give me time, Dash." The boss doesn't want an explanation. One of the gangster's hands moved to his weapon. "He wants his money." "I have intel on everyone," Rick cried out in desperation. "Names, dates, recordings, Dash." Tom leaves the scene quietly. He doesn't have to watch the whole drama. When he got far enough away, he heard 2 silenced gunshots. He knew the mob would handle Rick. Tom drove off and anonymously called the police a little later. They'll find Rick's body, and the investigation will determine that it was an internal mob liquidation. The case will be closed soon. His cell phone rings again, Eleanor calling. This time he picked up. "It's over," he said before she could open her mouth. "Rick's dead. Torres is in custody. The money's gone." "Tom, please." Her voice broke with tears. "I never wanted this to happen. Save your lies. I'm tired of listening. What should I do? I have nothing left." "You got exactly what you deserved." Tom's voice was icy. "You chose this path. Now walk it alone." He ended the call and drove to the motel where Eleanor was hiding. She opened the door to answer his knock. Her designer clothes replaced by cheap department store clothes. Her eyeshadow splattered and soiled from crying. Come to mock. She spat. Come to file your divorce papers. And this. He handed her an envelope containing evidence of her involvement in Rick's crimes. Don't try anything, or these will go to the FBI. You can't prove anything. Want a bet? Tom's smile was terrifying. I have recordings, bank records, witness statements, everything. Eleanor's shoulders sagged. What do you want? Sign the papers, disappear, and never contact me or Ava again. What if I don't? Then I will destroy you completely. Your choice. She signed it. Tom leaves her there, sobbing in her cheap motel room, her dreams of wealth and power shattered. His cell phone rang, and Izzy called with an update message. The investigation is proceeding as planned. Rick's death will be ruled a gangland killing. The Torres are working together to implicate everyone, and the Castellanos are turning on each other as their empire crumbles. Tom drove home, satisfaction warming his chest. They tried to destroy him, hurt his daughter, and steal everything he had built. Instead, he completely annihilated them. 5 years later, Tom Walker Architecture's new headquarters stands on the city skyline, with the company's name in clear letters across the glass facade. Inside his top-floor office, Thomas Walker reviews quarterly reports with the same dedication as he once planned construction projects. At 50, there was more gray in his hair than black, but his blue eyes stayed sharply focused, and his body stayed strong through discipline and training. The intercom rang. Mr. Walker, your daughter is here. Let her in. Ava walks into the office, now 26, with a confident grace. Her law degree hangs on Tom's office wall, paid for with Rick's illegal assets, a fact that always makes him smile. She specializes in prosecuting financial crimes, turning family tragedies into weapons against criminals. Ready for lunch, Dad? Tom closed the laptop. Anytime. What about the Martinez case? Another scammer trying to emulate Torres. Ava's smile sharpened. Thought he could run a real estate scam, targeting older veterans. Bad choice. The judge granted all our motions this morning. He faces a minimum of 20 years in prison. They took the elevator to the parking lot, where Tom's new truck waited. Still practical, but now a premium model. Some habits are hard to change. I heard from Mac this morning, Tom said as he drove, that the hospital has named him director of operations. Good, he deserves it. Ava checks her cell phone. Izzy is going to be deputy director next month. Danny's cybersecurity just won another government contract. Their friends flourished in the years following Eleanor and Rick's downfall. Loyalty brings better rewards than betrayal. The restaurant is upscale but discreet, one of their go-to places. The waiter showed them to the corner table where they were often seated, a position to keep an eye on all the entrances, another habit that hadn't faded. Sarah's getting married next month, Ava mentioned as they studied the menu, and asked me to be a bridesmaid. Tom nodded. Sarah was a pillar of support for Ava in her darkest days, providing shelter and support. Her family has become extended family. Mom's trying to reach out again, Ava said calmly. Tom's hand tightened on his glass of water. When? Last week. Email from new account. Ava's voice was icy, trying to explain her side of the story, saying she's finding peace now. I blocked her. Tom nodded in recognition. Eleanor has tried several times over the years to reconnect, and each time she's met with silence. She moved to Florida after her divorce, remarried some retired guy, and tried to rebuild her life. Tom keeps an eye on her through various channels, not out of emotion, but strategic caution. What's the word on Rick's old buddy? Ava asked. Castellano's organizations are mostly legal now. The old man died last year, and his son runs the regular business. Tom maintains a carefully neutral relationship with the crime family, mutual respect and distance. Torres is still in jail, at least another 10 years. Their meals came up, Tom's steak, Ava's grilled salmon. They ate quietly for a while. The company's expanding again, Tom mentioned, acquiring that Phoenix development company, the one Rick had tried to take from that widow. Ava's smile carries a sense of justice. The company's growth has been strategic and methodical, with each acquisition either strengthening their position or justifying the business. The money rescued from Rick's criminal behavior became the foundation of a business built on legitimate success. Agent Rodriguez called yesterday. Ava said, remember that unsolved case they reinvestigated, Rick's death? Tom's expression was calm. Oh, officially closed. C. Be considered as an internal liquidation of a criminal organization. No new leads. Ava locked eyes with him. They never discussed Tom's role in Rick's death. Ava never asked, understanding that some questions are best left unasked. But she knew her father, knew what he could do, knew how far he would go to protect his family. After lunch, they walked to the park where Ava played as a child. The old playground has been replaced with new equipment, funded by an anonymous donation from Walker Construction. James proposed, Ava said suddenly. Tom turned to study his daughter. James Chun is a prosecutor, and they met 2 years ago. Smart, honest, and loyal to Ava. Tom certainly did an extensive background check. This one's clean. What did you say? Say I need to think and take time to believe. Ava sat on a bench. I'm a little scared to trust after what happened to my mom. James isn't Rick or Eleanor. Tom said carefully. He's proven himself. You approve? I recognize anyone who makes you happy and treats you right. Tom's voice hardened. And he knows what he'll face if he doesn't. Ava laughed. Yes, he honors you in a healthy way. They watched the playing children for a while, the parents hovering nearby normal life, normal concerns. Tom sometimes wondered what it felt like. Izzy mentioned that they found Torres' old storage unit. Ava said, a lot of paperwork that could cause problems for some people. It's been taken care of, Tom replied. Danny wiped out any sensitive information. As far as anyone knows, it's empty. The company's cybersecurity department, managed by Danny, has proven to be an invaluable asset over the years. Information is power, and Tom is a firm believer in the importance of being in control. His cell phone rang, and Max sent their monthly security report, another measure of caution born of past experience. Sarah wants you to hold her down the aisle at the wedding, Ava mentions, and her dad has agreed to share the honor. Tom felt a warmth in his chest. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about those who stand by your side in difficult times. Dinner tonight? Ava asked as they reached her car. James would like to talk to you formally. Tom nodded. Tell him to bring that bottle of bourbon he's saving and remind him that I'm an excellent shot. Ava kissed him on the cheek. Love you, Daddy. I love you too. Watching her drive away, Tom reflects on the years since Eleanor's betrayal. He rebuilt more than a business. He forged a new family, stronger than blood, building a foundation based on loyalty, not lies. Back at the office, Tom reviews the day's reports, construction projects across 3 states, portfolios managed by trusted colleagues, safety briefings from Danny's team. A well-functioning organization where every part is carefully managed. His phone rings, and James Chun requests a meeting before dinner. May want to formally seek permission. Traditional but respected practices. Come to the office, he told James, and we'll talk. The young prosecutor arrived on time, suit pressed, demeanor respectful but not intimidating, good sign. Sir, I would like to discuss Ava, James said. Let's talk about your intentions. 2 hours later, Tom was satisfied with the conversation. James proved himself once again, emotionally honest, with a clear plan and the courage to stand his ground when challenged. A worthy companion for Ava. James displays an engagement ring that is elegant without being flashy. His proposed prenuptial agreement is fair, his background is clean, and his career prospects are solid. Most importantly, he understands what family means and what loyalty entails. I would never hurt her, James promised. Never betray her trust. Good, Tom responded. Because you know what people who hurt my family will face. James met his eyes calmly. Yes, sir. I completely understand. Tom smiled. The young man did his homework and understood the warning. Welcome to the family, son. Now, about that bottle of bourbon. That night, Tom stood at his office window and watched his city twinkle. His business was built on the ruins of betrayal, but it has become so much more a fortress to protect those he loves, a legacy worth carrying on. Eleanor and Rick taught him a profound lesson about trust and betrayal. He learned well and built a new life on bitter experience. Now he is everything they tried to steal: wealth, power, respect, and something they never understood: loyalty, family, honor. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.